During the Great Depression, the communist and socialist movements became very strong in the United States, despite intense anti-communist propaganda. The question is, can we anticipate a resurgence of a socialist and communist movement in the coming period?
I mean, I think, well, I'll let other people speak to what we should anticipate. But I also think for everyone who are working on listening to us and watching us here, this is a self-fulfilling prophecy here. If we think there needs to be a growing socialist communist movement that puts people over profit, we have to do the work to get out, to talk to people, to organize, to lead, to fight. And that's what the PSL is really about. And that's why we're really calling on people to see what we're about, liberationnews.org, to join our party and to fight with us. Because obviously, there's a lot happening right now, but what we do will be extremely decisive.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Eugene. I think it has to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the fact of the matter is, I do believe there's not going to be anything called going back to normal. The economy has been shattered. Again, it didn't need to be. You could have people not come to work for a month or 2 months or 3 months and keep them employed and say the government's going to bail out the workers and that no one's going to lose their job and there's not going to be rent. And, it didn't have to be this way. But capitalist greed and avarice, and also the feeling on the part of the bourgeoisie that they are so strong and we are so weak that they can get away with murder. That's why the French government, Macron, he's no friend of the workers. The French workers have been carrying out general strikes against his so-called pension reform. But Macron immediately came out and said, no, this will be the financial obligation of the French state. Why? He fears the working class, as he should. In the United States, the bourgeoisie knows that the people fear the government instead of the government fearing the people. The reason we got unemployment insurance in 1935 and the right to unionize through the Wagner Act, the reason there was something called Social Security, where old people don't have to immediately just die because they can't be employed by a capitalist, the reason those things happened is because the Communist Party and the socialist movement, generally speaking, grew and grew and grew. As we mentioned last week, there were general strikes in Toledo, in San Francisco, in Minneapolis. And that was in 1934. There was the Flint sit-down strike, but it wasn't just Flint. There were 1,000 sit-down strikes around the country. There were unemployment councils of millions of people where the unemployed and employed worked together. There were mutual aid operations organized by the left. The left, in fact, created new mass cultural mediums. Everything grew in this period because the ruling class and capitalism did not meet the needs of the people, and the left moved aggressively. We have to do this. We have to recognize that this crisis lays bare the problems in society, but also provides us, if we have the vision, the determination, the energy, the commitment, the belief in ourselves, the belief that people actually can make a difference as they always have when they come together as the collective. If we believe that, as Eugene said, it's going to happen, and it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy because each and every one of us can make a difference. That's our view. PSL is creating an organization of organizers and leaders. Each one of us learns new things from being in the party. If you didn't know how to write, you learn how to write. If you didn't know how to speak, you learn how to speak. If you didn't know how to hand out flyers or produce flyers or paint banners, you learn all of these things. If you know how to go into a community and organize tenants, all of us have all of these capabilities as organizers, and we can do it. We can make this movement. We can be this self-fulfilling prophecy. And I actually want to just finish with this point. If there was any place in the world where the material conditions for socialism existed, it's right here in the United States. We have a situation where we have 500,000 homeless people and even more unoccupied dwellings. This is a society of abundance. In fact, the crisis that society faces is not the crisis of scarcity, but the crisis of abundance. And the abundance can be dealt with humanistically, with rationality, and also with sustainability so that people's needs can be met without destroying our own environment and our own planet. That's what's coming.
I would like to mention, I love the answers from Eugene and Brian, and I agree with him. But I want to add one point about this rescue that has been mentioned today, the Federal Reserve announced that they're going to pump immediately $2.3 trillion into the economy, meaning into Wall Street, into the stock market, into the treasury bonds, into all their instruments of finance to keep their system and their profits up. But how did that happen that most people don't even know about it or think about it? And this goes back to February, in anticipation of an economic recession that was happening before and aside from the coronavirus epidemic. It was happening before because of the oil overproduction, the real estate overproduction, too many houses built by the capitalists where they could not make the profit that they're seeking. And so the Federal Reserve governors of the 12 banks across the United States met in February, and they were saying, in St. Louis actually, and they were complaining how the 2008 rescue of their system, the one that gave $700 billion and more to the banks, the crisis that they caused, they were saying in that meeting that it took too long to get that rescue for them, that it took months when it was under the Obama administration. And they said it has to happen a lot quicker when the next recession comes because they felt it coming. And so they said, well, we're going to have to get Congress in on this legislation so that when it happens quicker. So what that took place a couple of weeks ago with that first rescue package that was voted on by the Democrats and Republicans, mostly what the Republicans were demanding. I mean, the Democrats were asking for, they were saying, okay, if we rescue the banks, then we want a $15 an hour minimum wage for everyone. They didn't get that because they're the minority in the Senate. But of course, they have helped lead the government of the last 30 years of cutbacks and, attacks on Social Security and Medicare and so on. But anyway, what took place with that rescue 2 weeks ago was a mechanism now where the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department have now the freedom to pump in whenever they feel it's needed in these coming weeks and months, literally trillions more dollars. And that's what took place today. And like Brian said, people can't even get that $1,200 check. And if you're an undocumented person in a family where the rest of you are citizen or permanent resident, none of you is entitled to any payment, not even if you're a child citizen. But if your dad or mother or parent is an undocumented person, you are denied any assistance. It's really outrageous. And this is why we want to have these educationals really read our news. Every day we're producing articles about the crisis and why it doesn't have to be this way.